You are 60 years old, maybe older, and lately something feels off. You walk into a room and forget why you came. You lose your train of thought mid-sentence. You put your keys somewhere and spend 20 minutes searching. And the scariest part? You are starting to wonder if this is just how it goes from here. If this is the beginning of something you cannot stop. But what if I told you that your brain is not done fighting? What if the real problem is not your age at all, but what you have been eating, or more importantly, what you have been missing? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through 5 specific foods that scientists and doctors have quietly been calling some of the most powerful brain protectors on the planet. And the last one? Most people over 60 have never even thought of it as brain food. Now, before we get into the list, I want you to understand something important. The brain is not like a light switch that just flicks off one day. It is more like a garden. If you stop watering it, stop feeding it the right nutrients, it slowly starts to wither. But here is the beautiful truth. A garden can be revived. Research is showing us more clearly than ever that the food you put on your plate has a direct conversation with your brain. Every single day. What you eat either feeds your memory, sharpens your focus, and protects your neurons, or it slowly chips away at them. And for people over 60, this is not small talk. This is the difference between remembering your grandchildren's birthdays and struggling to recall what you had for breakfast. Now, I want you to stay comfortable because we are going to go through this one by one, starting with number 5, and each one is going to surprise you in a different way. Some of these foods are probably sitting in your kitchen right now, and you had no idea what they were doing for your brain or what they could do if you started eating them more consistently and more intentionally. Let's get into it. Number 5 on our list is blueberries. And yes, you have probably heard blueberries are good for you, but I promise you most people do not truly understand why. And once you hear what is actually happening inside your brain when you eat them, you will never look at this tiny fruit the same way again. Think of your brain like a city. There are roads connecting every neighborhood, every building, every home. Those roads are your neural pathways, the connections between brain cells that allow you to think, remember, and function. Now imagine that city is under constant attack from pollution. That pollution inside your body is called oxidative stress. Free radicals floating through your bloodstream, damaging cells, tearing up those roads, slowing everything down. Blueberries contain something called anthocyanins. That is the pigment that gives them their deep blue-purple color. And these anthocyanins act like a cleanup crew. They go into the brain and neutralize that pollution before it can do serious damage. But here is where it gets even more interesting. Studies have shown that people who eat blueberries regularly actually experience a slowdown in cognitive aging. What that means in plain English is this. Their brains were behaving like brains that were years younger than they actually were. Not months, years. And this is not some exotic berry you have to order online. This is available at almost every grocery store, fresh or frozen, and frozen blueberries actually retain most of their nutritional power beautifully. The easiest way to get blueberries into your day is to throw a handful into your morning yogurt, blend them into a smoothie, or honestly, just eat them straight from the bowl as a snack. You do not need a massive amount. A small cup a day is enough to start giving your brain that protective shield. And here's the thing. The benefit builds over time. This is not a one-day fix. This is a long-term investment in your brain's future. Think of it as paying into a savings account where the interest is your memory. Now here's what I want you to sit with for a second before we move on. Blueberries protect the brain from damage. That is powerful. But the next food on our list does something completely different. It actually helps your brain communicate faster. And when you hear how it works, you are going to want to add it to your next grocery run immediately. Number 4 is fatty fish. And I am talking specifically about fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, and herring. Now, if you are not a big fish person, stay with me, because I will also tell you how to get the same benefit without forcing yourself to eat something you do not enjoy. But first, let me explain what is happening here. Your brain is approximately 60% fat. I know that sounds unusual, but it is true. And a large portion of that fat is made up of something called omega-3 fatty acids, specifically a type called DHA. Now here's the problem. Your body cannot make DHA on its own. You have to get it from what you eat. When you are young, your brain has plenty of DHA packed into the membranes of your neurons. Those membranes are what allow your brain cells to pass signals back and forth quickly and efficiently. But as you age, if you are not replenishing that DHA through your diet, those membranes start to weaken. Think of it like a phone with bad reception. The signal is there, but it keeps cutting out. You reach for a memory and it is just slightly out of reach. You try to focus and something keeps pulling you away. That sluggishness, that foggy feeling that can be connected to a drop in DHA levels. When you eat fatty fish 2 or 3 times a week, you are literally feeding your brain the building blocks it needs to rebuild those membranes, sharpen that reception, and get the signal flowing clearly again. And people who do this consistently report something that science supports, a reduced risk of memory decline over time. Not just slower decline, a genuine, meaningful protection. And for seniors specifically, this is not optional nutrition. This is foundational. Now, if you truly cannot eat fish or you follow a plant-based diet, there is a solution: algae-based omega-3 supplements. And here's something interesting. Fish get their DHA from eating algae in the first place. So going to the algae directly is actually a very smart move. Talk to your doctor before starting any supplement, but know that this option exists and it is effective. But wait, we are only at number 4, and already we have talked about protecting brain cells and improving how fast they communicate. So what comes next? Number 3 is the one that most people are genuinely shocked by. It is not glamorous. It is not trendy. But the science behind it is quietly extraordinary, and older adults especially are almost never eating enough of it. Number 3 is leafy greens. And I mean dark, rich leafy greens like spinach, kale, Swiss chard, and collard greens. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Vegetables again? But give me 60 seconds before you skip ahead, because the specific reason leafy greens matter for your brain has nothing to do with general health advice. It is very targeted and very real. These greens are loaded with a specific nutrient called folate, along with vitamin K and lutein. And here is why those 3 things matter for your brain specifically after 60. Folate helps your body manage something called homocysteine. Homocysteine is an amino acid that naturally occurs in the body, but when the levels get too high, which happens more frequently as we age, it becomes harmful to brain tissue. High homocysteine has been directly linked to faster cognitive decline and a greater risk of memory problems. Folate acts like a regulator. It keeps homocysteine in check, protecting the delicate tissue inside your brain from unnecessary damage. Vitamin K, on the other hand, plays a role in something called sphingolipid metabolism. Now, I promise no medical jargon, so let me translate. Sphingolipids are a type of fat that makes up the covering around your nerve fibers, kind of like the rubber insulation around an electrical wire. If that insulation starts to break down, signals between brain cells get crossed or delayed. Vitamin K helps maintain that protective covering, keeping your brain's wiring intact. And lutein? Lutein concentrates in the brain, specifically in the areas responsible for learning and memory. And it acts as an antioxidant right at the source. One study found that older adults with higher lutein levels in their blood had brains that functioned more like those of younger adults. Again, not slightly younger, measurably younger. Now, the beautiful thing about leafy greens is how flexible they are. You do not have to sit down to a salad if salads are not your thing. Throw spinach into scrambled eggs, add kale to a soup, blend Swiss chard into a smoothie where you will barely taste it. Steam some collard greens with garlic and a drizzle of olive oil, and they become genuinely delicious. The goal is consistency. A serving a day, most days of the week, and your brain will feel the difference over weeks and months. Here's where I want to pause and ask you something. We are halfway through this list, and every single food so far has shown up in science as a genuine protector of the aging brain. Not a miracle, not a cure, but a real supportive force that your brain desperately needs and that most seniors are not getting enough of. So ask yourself right now, how many of these have you been eating consistently? If the answer is not many, that is not a reason to feel guilty. It is a reason to feel hopeful, because the changes we are talking about are simple and they are available to almost everyone. And the next food on the list might be the easiest one to add to your routine, but the reason it works is something most people would never expect. Number 2 is walnuts. And no, I am not grouping walnuts in with nuts in general. I am talking specifically about walnuts, because among all the nuts in the world, walnuts have a unique nutritional profile that makes them especially relevant for brain health in older adults. And here is the first thing that always makes people smile. Have you ever noticed that a walnut, when you crack it open, actually looks like a tiny brain? 2 halves, folds, and ridges? Nature has a sense of humor. But more than the appearance, the content of a walnut is remarkable. Walnuts contain a plant-based form of omega-3 fatty acids. Not the same DHA you get from fish, but a precursor called ALA, which your body can partially convert. They also contain a very high level of antioxidants, higher than almost any other nut. But the most fascinating thing about walnuts, specifically for people over 60, is their effect on something called neuroinflammation. Now, inflammation in the body is not always bad. Acute inflammation is your immune system doing its job. But chronic, slow-burning inflammation in the brain, neuroinflammation, is now being studied as one of the primary drivers of memory loss and cognitive decline in aging adults. Think of it like a fire that is always smoldering somewhere in your house. It never fully flares up, so you do not notice it day to day. But over years, it is quietly doing damage to the walls and the foundation. Walnuts contain compounds that help dampen that smoldering fire. They help bring the inflammation down to a level where your brain can function without constantly fighting against it. And when your brain is not spending all its energy fighting inflammation, it has more resources for what you actually want it to do. Remember things, stay focused, think clearly. On top of all that, walnuts support something called the gut-brain axis. Your gut and your brain are in constant communication through the nervous system and through chemical signals in the bloodstream. The health of your gut directly influences the health of your brain. Walnuts are a prebiotic food, meaning they feed the good bacteria in your gut. And when those good bacteria thrive, they produce compounds that travel up to the brain and support mood, focus, and even memory. Just a small handful, about an ounce, roughly 14 walnut halves, is enough to get these benefits. You can eat them as a snack, crush them over oatmeal, mix them into a salad, or stir them into yogurt. They are satisfying, they are filling, and every single one of them is quietly having a conversation with your brain that goes something like, "We are here, we have got you, keep going." Now, before I get to number one, the food that I genuinely believe is the most underrated brain protector for people over 60, the one that almost nobody talks about, but that the research is increasingly pointing to as something extraordinary. I need you to do something for me. If this video is helping you, if you have learned something that surprised you or that you plan to actually use, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it helps this information reach more people who need it. More seniors who are quietly worried about their memory. More people who just want to know that there is something they can do. That one tap from you makes a difference. Also, drop a comment below and tell me your age. Just your age. I want to see our community represented in those comments. Whether you are 62 or 78 or even 55 and planning ahead, say hello, say your age, and let us build something real down there. A community of people who are choosing to take care of their brains and not just accept decline as inevitable. Because it is not inevitable. And number one is going to prove that to you. Number one on this list is extra virgin olive oil. And I can already hear some of you thinking, olive oil? That is the big reveal? But stay with me for just a few more minutes. Because the reason olive oil is number one on this list is not what you think. And once you understand what it actually does inside your aging brain, you will understand why researchers are calling it one of the most significant dietary discoveries for cognitive health in modern times. Here is where we need to talk about something called autophagy. Now that word sounds complicated, but the concept is beautifully simple. Autophagy is your brain's built-in cleaning system. It is the process by which your brain cells identify old, damaged, or dysfunctional proteins and debris, the biological trash that accumulates naturally over decades of living, and clear it out. Think of it like your brain taking out its own garbage. When this system works well, the brain stays clean, cells stay healthy, and connections stay sharp. When this system starts to fail, which it does as we age, that garbage starts to pile up. And that accumulation of damaged proteins inside the brain is now being looked at as a central feature of age-related memory decline. Here is where extra virgin olive oil becomes extraordinary. It contains a compound called oleocanthal. Oleocanthal has been shown in research to activate and enhance the brain's autophagy process. It essentially helps your brain take out the trash more effectively. It stimulates the cleanup crew, helps clear out the accumulated debris, and in doing so, reduces the burden on your neurons so they can do their job, which is keeping you sharp, present, and connected to your memories and your life. But that is not all oleocanthal does. It also has powerful anti-inflammatory properties, targeting the same kind of neuroinflammation we talked about with walnuts, but through a different mechanism. It essentially blocks the same inflammatory pathways that certain medications target, but it does so gently, naturally, and without side effects as part of a real food. And here is something remarkable. Researchers studying populations in Mediterranean countries, where olive oil is consumed daily as a staple of every meal, have observed consistently lower rates of age-related cognitive decline compared to populations who do not eat this way. The Mediterranean diet has been studied extensively, and olive oil is considered by many researchers to be its most important component for brain protection. Now, here is a critical detail, because not all olive oil is the same. You must use extra virgin olive oil, not regular olive oil, not light olive oil, not vegetable oil blended with a little olive oil. Extra virgin means the oil was cold pressed without heat or chemicals, and it retains all of its natural compounds, including oleocanthal. Regular olive oil has been processed in ways that destroy most of those brain protective compounds. So when you buy it, look specifically for the words extra virgin on the label and try to find one in a dark glass bottle, because light degrades the oil's potency over time. How do you use it? Drizzle it over your salad. Pour it over your cooked vegetables. Dip your bread in it instead of using butter. Use it as the cooking fat for your eggs in the morning. A couple of tablespoons a day is all it takes. And here's the beautiful thing. Unlike supplements, unlike expensive powders or pills, extra virgin olive oil is a food. It tastes wonderful. It makes other food taste better. And it is one of the most accessible, affordable, and enjoyable ways to protect your brain that exists. Now let me bring all 5 of these together for you, because I want to make sure you leave this video with something clear and actionable. Not overwhelmed, not confused, but genuinely equipped. Here is the simplest possible picture of what we have talked about. Your brain, after 60, faces a handful of specific threats. Oxidative stress damaging your neurons, communication between brain cells slowing down, harmful amino acids building up, inflammation smoldering quietly, and cellular debris accumulating over time. Every single food on this list addresses one or more of those threats directly. Blueberries fight oxidative damage. Fatty fish rebuilds the membranes that allow fast, clear communication between neurons. Leafy greens regulate harmful compounds and protect your brain's wiring. Walnuts cool down neuroinflammation and support the gut-brain connection. And extra virgin olive oil activates your brain's own cleanup system while also reducing inflammation through a separate, powerful pathway. None of these foods is a cure. None of them will reverse severe memory problems overnight. That is not what I am telling you. What I am telling you is this: if you are over 60 and you are not eating these foods consistently, your brain is not getting the specific nutrients it needs to protect itself, repair itself, and function at its best. And that gap, that nutritional gap, is something you can begin to close starting with your very next meal. That is not a small thing. That is actually a profound thing. Think about what it would mean 6 months from now if you made these changes. To feel a little sharper in the morning, to walk into a room and actually remember why you went there, to hold a conversation without losing your thread, to feel like your mind is something you can still trust. That is not wishful thinking. That is what the science is pointing toward. Not a guarantee, but a genuine, realistic possibility, especially when these foods become a consistent part of how you eat. And if you are watching this thinking about someone you love, a parent, a spouse, a friend who is struggling with their memory, share this video with them. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is put the right information in front of them at the right moment. This might be that moment for someone in your life. Now I want to hear from you. Scroll down to the comments right now and tell me your age, not because it is required, not because you have to share anything private, but because when you post your age in the comments of a video like this, something interesting happens. You see 67, you see 74, you see 61, and suddenly you realize I am not alone in this. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of people around the world who are in exactly the same season of life, asking exactly the same questions, making exactly the same changes. That shared experience is powerful. It keeps you accountable. It keeps you motivated, and it helps us build a community here that is real and that actually supports one another. So drop your age below. Add a note if you want. Tell me which of these 5 foods surprised you the most. Tell me which one you are going to try first. Tell me if you have already been eating one of these and whether you have noticed a difference. I read these comments. I pay attention. And your feedback actually shapes the videos I make next. Also, if you are not subscribed yet, please subscribe right now and tap the bell so you do not miss what is coming. Because we have videos planned on the specific breakfast habits that are quietly draining brain energy in seniors, the one common kitchen oil that may be doing real damage to your memory, and the simple daily habit, it takes less than 10 minutes, that has been shown to strengthen the hippocampus